Hello and welcome to Planet Zoo, to another tutorial, or well, rather than a tutorial, it's going to be a guide I suppose. Today we're going to look at how to plan a zoo, so how to start building a zoo, how to do a layout and all that, and where to get inspiration from. So first things first. Obviously started in sandbox mode. Depending on which mode you start in, you might want to do this a little differently. But if you're going for a large creative zoo with a lot of terraforming, starting in sandbox is best. So here's a few basic rules. Most maps, you will start out in these huge, empty, flat maps. If you want to terraform, say you want a river going through a zoo at the end, place the river in the beginning. So, just instantly start with terraforming. Have a nice tool, then where your river should be. But usually I do is I just dig one hole usually, and then I go in flat into foundation and just pull that through. Like so. And then just pull that through the whole area where you want your river to be. Go over it with a smoothing tool or something, to make it look a little more realistic, I suppose. And then fill in water. This is one of the things you want to do right away. It's going to be dirty, but that's fine. Because as soon as you place habitats and paths, those can affect the water. So you won't be able to place water because there's a barrier somewhere, there's height differences, there might be an animal somewhere, etc. So that's really something you want to do in the beginning. The same thing goes for placing, or like for creating, I suppose, mountains and the like. Do that right away. You can adjust them later on, but get a rough idea of like one of the mountain over there, get a rough idea of the mountain right away. Mountains are a little hard to work with concerning paths because you usually have to raise the paths and all that, but you can definitely do it, and most animals are fine with it, so don't worry too much about that. So definitely start off with terraforming if you are in a game mode where you can afford it. If you are doing a franchise zoo, obviously that won't work all that well. And once you've gotten terraforming done, you want to start off with your basic ideas, right? What I usually do is I get a piece of paper and I write down what animals I want and where I want them. And then I'll just start with creating a plaza. Like doing an entrance area, which I usually do some sort of big plaza where I can put the first few shops. Turning shops, I've already talked about this in a different tutorial, but just in case, we're going to go over it again. Now with these vending machines, it's gotten a lot easier, but if you want to place down shops, I'd have an information store. We fail like pretty much in the beginning. Everything else you can sort of push towards the end, and try to have toilets regularly. Finances, so ATMs and donation boxes, you can just place those around habitats. And try to get a rough gist of where you need your drink stores and your food stores to be. So let's say, we're going to place the first ones here in front. We'll need some again around roughly here, because that's when the visitors are going to be asking for them. Same thing for the toilets, so just get a rough idea of that. And the next thing you want to plan are your staff, or your staff facilities specifically. You can do those anywhere, you can even dig them underground, so that's I can try showing you what I mean. You can sort of just one of those games. You just go down, make sure you leave some space upwards, right? And then you can like make a space here, put a path down, and then you can have your staff facilities in there if you really don't want to see any of them. Realistically speaking, you'll want to go and you'll want to know, okay, this area here needs its own staff facilities, so where in this area am I going to put my staff facility? And just set out with that. Because it's quite annoying when you have your habitats and then realize you have no space for facilities. Especially if we're talking about water, solar, electricity in general, about the utilities, all of their radius. So you can just roughly be like, okay, I'll need like one here, then I'll need the next one like here, right? And then the next one here, stuff like that. With water, as soon as it touches it, it's going to clean the whole water, so that's that. And for transformers, they need to touch the border of the habitat if you have a habitat that needs to be powered. So try to get that done. And then you can actually start by putting down your path and just building those. What I like to do is I like to have some sort of entrance habitat. So, you know, like people are going to come in. Path here, you know, they come in. And then you have like a little plaza here, which I usually do with the grid. That. I mean, obviously it doesn't work out that well right now, but you know, just do like a nice little plaza space here where I can put food stalls up. Even kind of, it doesn't work this time, but whatever. And then, you know, you can have your stalls here. And then I try to have my first habitat. And generally, you want to make sure that you don't have any really shy animals right at the beginning of the zoo. Because this is where all of your visitors are going to come in. Towards the end, they'll spread out, but right here you'll have everyone. Meaning, if you have animals such as, I don't know, maybe lemurs. Lemurs seem to be pretty bad when it comes to that. Right, you've got your red ruffed lemurs. You've got right in front. They're actually neutral and guests can enter the habitat, which makes them really, really nice to have an open habitat. But I find that if you have a lot of people around them, they're going to be stressed out permanently. So try to have animals up front where you don't have to worry too much about that. Ones, those are, you know, you can always go for like a Komodo dragon or something confident animals in general that works quite well. Peafowl, for example, you know, those are pretty cheap. Pretty easy to have. Some are, of course, a little harder to get by. But just really try to stay away from any animal that's like actually full-on shy. And if it's neutral, you should at the very least try to put down some ways to make the animals, to give them like space to hide and also tell the visitors that they should be quiet and stuff like that. Because this is going to be the area where all of your people are going to be once, and that's going to freak out the animals. I found that personally, if I want a zoo to look really realistic or more realistic, I do try to have like a river going through it at some point, maybe like so, you know, or I'll do a lake in the middle and then use that lake and place habitats around it. Also works quite well, also works quite well in my opinion. Having a hill somewhere could also go and be like, okay, we're gonna have like castle over here, right? So then you build a castle here and you can put habitats into or around that castle. Sort of go with what you want to do and try to integrate that. And yeah, just, you know, all on. Make sure that your paths are properly connected. Make sure you give visitors enough benches, because otherwise they won't actually walk farther into the zoo. They're always tired. And they really ensure that you have staff facilities connected to everything, and that you have enough staff facilities for every habitat or for every building or whatever. Because if you have like one keeper hut here, right? And I have like 10 keepers, it's gonna get pretty tight. So when you start that, you know, just start bit by bit, build it. Try to pull your theme along and go with that. Obviously, you know, like staring at an empty map can be a little crazy, but just start in the beginning and then slowly pull outwards with an idea in mind and try to get terraforming done right away. It's a lot easier. So, inspiration and themes. A lot of people seem to be a little lost about what you're supposed to do and where to get inspiration from. What I personally like to do is I like to look up other zoos online, or, you know, just take local buildings, or some beautiful building I've seen in a picture from somewhere, and use that as a theme. Of course, if you're not into building structures, that can be a little annoying. But you can always do sort of like maybe a garden, or certain, you know, like a classical theme always works really, really well for big open gardens. You could go with the Indian theme that the game has and do like an old village, stuff like that. You don't always have to build large structures. Or you could do a, you know, like a jungle theme park, sort of. You've got rides and everything, so it's definitely a lot of inspiration out there. You just have to try and look for it. Pretty much anything can be done in Planet Zoo. There's a few YouTubers that have completely wrecked this game by building towns on the moon, for example. So you can do everything you want, but just try to look around you for inspiration. Zoos always work well, buildings, anything. And even if it doesn't always work out all that well, you can try to build around, try to figure out what you want to do. I also always recommend just going with pre-built objects to, for example, this thing here. You could take this, make it your entrance to an area of the zoo, and then use this color scheme and the theming to create habitats in that zoo, right? Take this thing, put it next to a river, have some crocodiles on it. If I have more seeds, that's just me. Oh, either way, you can definitely go with that and just take inspiration from what the game is giving you. And if you yourself can't really come up with much at a time. Because there are so many beautiful scenery pieces. Work quite well as, just a little bit of inspiration. Or like actual staff buildings. Because they're all very, very well done and they all look quite pretty. So, you could take this and then create a habitat in that. Don't forget about exhibits. They're always nice to interrupt space. And don't worry about having larger areas that don't have a habitat in it. I personally find it uncomfortable if it's just one animal next to the other animal next to the other animal. So you can always just go and leave some area in between. Add in some buildings, or add in a forest, add in flowers, add in any sort of sculpture you want, or you can just leave it bare. Just try to pull that through. I always find it helpful to literally have a piece of paper with me and just, like look down at the map that I have and go like, okay, I'm gonna have the entrance area here. And I'll leave my staff centers over there and over there just for the basic area. And I've got my river going down here maybe. So I want to do some water-based animals next to the river so that I can use that actual river. And things like that. You have certain animals that you might want to connect further down. So like, you want to have the giant pandas next to the red pandas. Or you want to have both tigers next to each other. Or you really don't want it both tigers next to each other. Come on, microphone. It's trying not to pick up my voice. Sorry. And just go in with that. It's really not that difficult. If you plan on doing a franchise mode, I've got a second tutorial up that's specifically for franchise modes, since those are a little harder, or specifically anything that's not just building in Sandbox, I suppose, comes with some additional restrictions because you have to watch your money in the beginning. But basically, just build whatever. I always find it very helpful to have 1 or 2 large buildings in the zoo. So like, I usually do a glass house for some tropical animals, and then maybe if I do like a classical zoo, some sort of castle structure. And then I can have like lions in that, and then next to the lions there's going to be other animals in the back as well. And then maybe you can do an area where visitors can go into the castle to put some exhibits or to put shops or whatever. And then I make those the main structures of the zoo, and then I try to work around that with habitats that carry the same pieces, but don't necessarily have large buildings. I always like to ensure that I have actual buildings instead of just like small shelters with most animals, because, I mean, depending on the theme of my zoo, but usually I find that to give you a more complete structure than just, like flatness, flat, and then there's like a shed down there, but no actual buildings, which would just be more realistic in my opinion. And yeah, definitely work out how you want your paths to, right? Like both the normal paths and the staff paths. Make sure that your staff buildings are all far away enough from the actual paths that there's no issues, and that everything is well connected so that you don't end up with like 6 habitats next to each other. And whenever the keeper wants to go to the first one, he has to go all the way around them. It's stuff like that that can ruin your zoo early on. And yeah, if your visitors don't go all the way over there, and you also want them all the way over there, since if you're in sandbox mode, you can just go and grab one of these, which are your guest spawners. Take it, and you can put it over here. Build your own, like all the way over there, I suppose. But over here, and then you can build a second entrance over here if you want that. I don't know if people are aware of that, but you can do that. You have to take the guest spawner, and you have to get these, which by the way you can also just get in the menu, like duplicate them. You have to group, and then you can just place it down over here as well. Over here, where did I even place it? There somewhere, yeah. And then you can have like a second entrance over here, which is totally viable. So you could like have an entrance here, an entrance here, an entrance over there maybe. You could also just not use a part of the map with animals and just decorate it as like area around you, so yeah, just, you know, try to, I don't know, it's always hard to say try to be creative, but this game lets you do a lot. Do so many things with terraforming, you can just manipulate everything the way you want it to be. And it takes a while sometimes, but I think it's definitely worth it. And if you need inspiration, you know, go to the Steam Workshop maybe. Download a habitat from the Steam Workshop. And then try to create a second habitat in the same style. Something like that. You can also do, in case you are like me and you don't like having 10 habitats in the same theme, do like little areas, so like African, Asian, I don't know, Arctic, and over here we've got temperate, and just give all of them different themes and all of them different styles, and just pull it together in the middle. Be clear. You can also create quite a nice zoo, and there's nothing wrong with doing a basic habitat, nothing wrong with it at all. So like, don't be scared of that, don't be scared of not having huge buildings. You can do a lot of beautiful things with just flowers and stones. So yeah. I didn't actually build anything. I don't know. I might check if I have any large zoos on the second. All of my builds, so goodness, careers. All the German careers. What was that? No, that was just me building something. Yeah, that's all just scenario zoos. Okay, well, I've just done scenario zoos on this account, so that's a problem. I can't actually show you any of my other zoos, but you know, I hope it's helped a little bit with the rough idea of planning. Basics are, you know, pathing. So start with terraforming, do your pathing, make sure you have enough space everywhere for staff buildings, make sure the staff buildings reach everything. You don't want to have an area that doesn't have staff buildings in it, because then everyone will have to walk there for ages. Make sure you have a fitting theme, you want that, and then place your habitats one by one and try to pull them together with scenery pieces, buildings, whatever. If you want to have major buildings, put them in right away after the terraforming and after the pathing, so that you can kind of place everything else around that. And yeah, that's gonna be my talk for this week, I suppose. If there's anything else you guys would like to see tutorials or guides on, feel free to request it down below. I've got quite a few builds that I'm doing right now, and I'll be uploading builds for every animal one by one, as well as some larger ones if they're requested, or like specific ones if they're requested. And I'll probably also be doing some non-animal buildings. And yeah, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to view more of my very, very chaotic videos. But you know, I have a lot of builds up. Maybe that helps if you're looking for inspiration. You can find all of them on the Steam Workshop, and I've put the links in all of the video description, so you can just go there. And yeah, I hope this helped you. I hope you're maybe a little less lost in the idea of building your own zoo now. And if you aren't, you know, just start small. Nothing wrong with not having a plan for a whole zoo. Always go, make your one habitat, and then just go on from that. It's not going to be a huge, well-planned zoo, but that's also totally fine. Hey, why is it raining? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you a little bit, and I hope I'll see you again soon.